This is like an existential situation here. Is it so bad to have this one country in the middle of the Middle East, which is a very rough neighborhood, Syria, Lebanon, that likes us, that will help us, that would, if we ever had a conflict there, help with our military staging, that has amazing intelligence that it shares with us, that has amazing abilities to effect, terrorist takedown plans, which is also helpful. So these strategic reasons make sense to me too, for our understanding we don't have endless funds to spend some there.
Megyn Kelly sat down with Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene for a discussion about Israel, the Israel lobby, and the ongoing genocide in Gaza, which Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene rightfully labels as a genocide, to her credit. Now, a declarative statement that you just heard Megyn Kelly make is something that we as Americans have heard over and over again. It's this claim that Israel is America's greatest and most important ally. I think that is the greatest lie told in America, to be quite honest, and I want to explain why, point by point. Now, Megyn Kelly brings up the sad reality that Middle Eastern countries express some hostility toward the United States. And that hostility, in my opinion, has a lot to do with our unwavering support for Israel, which essentially saddles us with a ton of toxic baggage. The United States has done much to destabilize the Middle East on behalf of Israel. Here's legendary political scientist and co-author of the Israel lobby, John Mearsheimer, to explain in greater detail.
Israel is a strategic albatross around their neck. The policies that Israel pursues in the Middle East are not in our interest.
The Zionists from the beginning have wanted a greater Israel. And David Ben-Gurion wrote a piece in 1918, and David Ben-Gurion, of course, is the founding father of Israel.
Yes.
Wrote a piece in 1918. I don't think it's ever been published in English. It's just in Yiddish, where he describes what his goals are for a greater Israel, right? And it obviously includes Green Line Israel, Gaza, the West Bank. It includes parts of the East Bank. It includes parts of southern Syria. It includes parts of southern Lebanon. And it includes the Sinai Peninsula. Just think about that. That was Ben-Gurion's vision. And this was a vision that was shared by almost all the early Zionist leaders. And there are still many people in Israel who are in favor of a greater Israel. They don't want a tiny Israel.
And that includes the current Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, who told the Israeli publication I-24 News that he is in fact a believer of the Greater Israel Project. That was an announcement he made. So let's not hide the ball here. Let's pretend like we don't know what the real objectives are as it pertains to Israel's foreign policy. So just think about that for a second. What's in it for the United States and Americans as we aid and abet Israel's conquest, which requires ethnic cleansing, genocide, and regime change wars in sovereign countries? How exactly does that benefit us? In my opinion, it doesn't. Instead, it leads to hostility toward the United States. For instance, here's Benjamin Netanyahu all the way back in 2002 advising Congress on what our foreign policy should be in regard to Iraq.
You can beam Melrose Place, but it may take a long time. On the other hand, if you take out Saddam's regime, I guarantee you that it will have enormous positive reverberations on the region. And I think that people sitting right next door in Iran, young people, and many others will say, the time of such regimes, of such despots, is gone.
Of course, the United States conducted a preemptive war and invaded Iraq in March of 2003 on the false claims that Saddam Hussein was harboring weapons of mass destruction. He was a real threat to the United States. Now, of course, there were no WMDs, nor were there IDF soldiers on the ground assisting American soldiers in combat, but hundreds of thousands of innocent people died. That stupid regime change war ruined the lives of so many people and destroyed that country. And honestly, I can't blame the people of Iraq for feeling a little bit of anger toward the United States over what we did. The real question is why we don't feel more rage here in the United States. After all, we lost 4,492 American soldiers. Another 32,292 American soldiers were wounded. In addition to that, America's debt began to skyrocket with our meddling in the Middle East on behalf of Israel. Between fiscal years 2001 through 2021, we've wasted away a minimum, this is a low estimate, of $1.6 trillion on wars in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. Israel was seeking the fall of Bashar al-Assad in Syria, of course, and we helped them fund the rebels during the civil war. And what was our reward? Having Ahmed al-Sharaa, a former Al-Qaeda terrorist, become the new leader of Syria. I was under the impression that Al-Qaeda was America's foe, with that whole 9/11 terror attack and everything. But Israel won big because Syria's new leader is very deferential to Tel Aviv. In addition to that, Israel was able to take advantage of the situation and invade the buffer zone in southwestern Syria and has essentially continued to occupy it. Then on October 25th of this year, Israel went even further in its invasion of southern Syria while conducting airstrikes on Damascus. They actually did so the day after the Israelis called for the demilitarization of South Syria so they can just swoop in and take the land. So why are we helping Israel build an empire on our dime and with the use of our soldiers? And as the Arab and Muslim world suffers from the consequences of this destabilization, are we really going to pretend like we don't understand why the civilians are upset with the United States? But the US has to be getting some benefit from its relationship from Israel, right? Like there has to be something. And luckily, hey, look, we've got ex-CIA agent Andrew Bustamante, who certainly thinks so. So let's hear what he has to say.
I am a staunch supporter of Israel's importance to the United States. They are the first wall of defense for us. There's a reason that everybody's up so much at the end of World War II, because we had to build walls around the American boundary. We needed to manipulate Europe. NATO is there to protect us. We're not there to help Europe. NATO's there to protect us. Israel's there to protect us. We continue to, our presidents like Biden, call the Saudi Arabian prince all sorts of horrible names and promise justice, but it never happens because Saudi Arabia protects us. Americans for sure don't want our enemies at the gate. So we let our enemies go to other gates. And then in diplomatic channels, military channels, and intelligence channels, we give them the tools to fight the fight. Israel doesn't trust us. They know we have set them up to take bullets instead of our people. They know that we put them into a country that's surrounded by their enemies. They understand that every proposition and accord that we try to force them into benefits us more than it benefits them.
The Saudis were involved in 9/11. Did we forget that? The Saudis are what? What was that? Israel protects us? Which country decided to use its military might, its soldiers, and its bombs to strike Iran's nuclear sites? Was it IDF soldiers? No, it wasn't. It was American soldiers that did that. What is this guy even talking about? Okay, so we, the Americans, decided Israel would be established in the Middle East where they'd be surrounded by their enemies. We decided that? It wasn't, due to the fact that the Israelis consider that area the Holy Land. It wasn't the result of the British Foreign Ministry, which through the Balfour Declaration of 1917 promised that a Jewish state would be established in a plot of land inhabited by the Palestinians. How the hell was that guy in the CIA? That is some of the most depressing news I've heard in a long time. And honestly, like the delusions don't end there. Here's more.
That's you very open about the fact that the Mossad is extremely reckless, very open about the fact that We don't have to solve Iran's problem because that's Israel's problem. We just give them the money and you go do it, right? What do you need? Here, go do it. It's on you. And you guys pretty much can self-sustain yourself.
Even better, we don't give you the money. We sell you the weapons, so we make the profit, but you're still giving us. You're still buying in American dollars.
American taxpayers are forced to provide Israel with $4.8 billion in military aid each year as part of a 10-year agreement called the Memorandum of Understanding. On top of that, we've been funneling tens of billions of dollars of additional money to Israel since October 7th, 2023. In fact, why don't we take a look at this handy dandy chart, which shows you the top countries we provide both economic and military aid to. Israel, of course, beats every single country, with American taxpayers shelling out more than $310 billion that we've given to Israel, up until 2024. Egypt, who we essentially bribed to play nice with Israel, is a distant second with around half as much foreign aid from Americans. He literally just said that Israel buys weapons from us with their own money. Israel had an economic surplus in 2021 in the middle of a pandemic. The United States is $37 trillion in debt. They have universal health care, paid family leave, all sorts of perks and benefits that their pay pigs here in America don't ever get to take advantage of. We're like drowning in debt while their economy remains strong. And this guy was in the CIA. He has the audacity to tell people that they're helping us economically by buying our weapons. Now, look, one could argue that the military aid that gets funneled to Israel does benefit some Americans, namely, that teeny tiny group of defense contractors that stands to profit. But actually, even in that case, there's a bit of a loophole that Israel gets to benefit from. Let's take a look.
This is really interesting. We give a ton of money to all these foreign countries, and if it's military aid, they're required to purchase weapons from our defense contractors. Except Israel is the only one with an exception. They don't have to buy from our American defense contractors. They can use that money to buy from Israeli defense contractors.
Oh, wow.
So there's a funny little exception.
So we are paying the costs in both blood and treasure to help our special ally build their military and their empire. Got it. But hey, at least we have a country that's friendly and nice to us in the Middle East, right? Let's ask another former CIA agent, John Kiriakou.
Who did you not at all trust, even though you had to work with them?
Israelis.
You didn't trust them?
Not as far as I could throw them.
You, or was that a cultural thing?
It was cultural, but in my very first encounter with the Israeli intelligence service, the Mossad, I was a brand new analyst. This is like March of 1990. And I was instructed to participate in a large scale briefing of the Israeli Mossad and Shin Bet representatives in Washington. And we don't allow the Israelis into CIA headquarters because they would always come with gifts, and the gifts had always listening devices packed inside them. And somebody brings you a gift, you x-ray it. It's the normal process. And we're like, you guys can't keep coming back here every single time trying to bug our conference rooms. So no more. So,
and was it easy to x-ray and see that they had bugs in them?
Yeah.
What percentage of the time did gifts have bugs in them?
100%.
They're so nice to us. And look, honestly, I can't be upset with Americans who drank the pro-Israel Kool-Aid because the propaganda has been ingrained in every single facet of American life. Just as one example, guess who published the textbooks America's children were made to read in our public schools? Just a guy by the name of Robert Maxwell, who was not only the father to child groomer and child predator Ghislaine Maxwell, but he was also an Israeli spy. If you don't believe me, take a look at this.
The same year Maxwell acquired the Mirror, he accompanied fellow British business tycoon Gerald Ronson to a meeting with the Israeli Prime Minister. For decades, Maxwell had kept his Jewish roots private, but Ronson convinced him to admit his ancestry. Midway through their meeting, Maxwell announced he wanted to invest $250 million in Israel and agreed to share security intel with the Mossad. Maxwell kept his word. 2 years later, an Israeli nuclear technician named Mordecai Vanunu went to London hoping to blow the whistle on a dangerous nuclear arms program. He was prepared to sell the evidence to the Sunday Times, but Maxwell persuaded him to sell the story to the Mirror instead. Maxwell sent the pictures to the Israeli embassy in London, supposedly to confirm the truth of the story. But Maxwell never paid Vanunu and never ran the story either. Later, Vanunu was drugged and kidnapped back to Israel, where he was imprisoned on crimes against the state. Some years later, at Maxwell's funeral, Israeli President Shimon Peres personally praised Maxwell's services to Israel.
It wasn't clarified in the script for that video, so let me just make sure we're all on the same page and we know what we're talking about here. That dangerous nuclear arms program that Robert Maxwell wanted to avoid any news being published about belonged to Israel. Israel was conducting that dangerous nuclear arms program. They were stealing nuclear secrets from the United States. They're a special friend, they're so nice to us. And developing nuclear weapons that till this day they refuse to acknowledge. Till this day they refuse to engage or be part of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Till this day, they are engaged in that kind of nefarious activity, whereas Iran was part of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, had inspectors in their own country, and there was confirmation that they were not building nuclear weapons. But Israel got its dog, the United States, to carry out strikes against their nuclear sites anyway. Anyway, back to Maxwell. Maxwell acquired the Science Research Association in 1988 and positioned it as the centerpiece of his educational publishing business in the US and Canada, by the way. Sorry, Canadians. Later, SRA would merge with McGraw-Hill's Educational Publishing Division to form a joint venture which became a major force in the US textbook market. Maxwell also acquired other educational publishers like London House and Macmillan, which only helped him further expand his reach into the educational market. We've been part of a long-term propaganda campaign that seeks to brainwash us into selling out our own country, really, to help Israel build its own. And now we're all complicit in a horrific genocide. So excuse me if I refuse to buy the lie, and it is a lie, that Israel is an ally to the United States. And it appears our government and portions of our media aren't really allies to the American people either.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.